which is army chief is very much in control over there. So, so long as the government doesn't get ideas that it is running policy, I think the government will continue minimum of 2 years.
Welcome to the Gist on Stat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Good evening. My guest this evening is Tilak Devasher. He was a former special secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat. He's a specialist on Pakistan. He's written a number of books on it, including on Balochistan. Welcome, Tilak Devasher. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Tell me, we were discussing this a little earlier before we started this recording. Is this the kind of result the army wanted?
It's difficult to say or get into the mind of the army what they wanted. But the army has got institutional memory of getting the results that it wants.
Yeah.
And there are three phases of it, how it goes about. After the 1970 elections, which were the freest and fairest ever in Pakistan, led to the breakaway of East Pakistan and became Bangladesh. The
Yeah.
army has taken an institutional decision since then that no election can be left to the whims and fancies of the electorate. They have to engineer to ensure they get a result which will lead to their being able to dominate the government and to ensure that there is no such thing that ever happens again. So they do it in three phases. There is a pre-poll rigging in which they lay the groundwork. There is rigging during the polling, and then there is political engineering after the results are known. In this case, they rigged the pre-poll rigging was massive, including denying PTI the symbol, as a result of which all their sort of candidates had to contest as independents without a symbol. And all of them are pressurized in different ways. We all know that. During the actual
Yeah.
voting, when they found that the trends were showing a wave in favor of Imran Khan, then they moved in and, the phones were in any case switched off, results were delayed. When they did their rigging, would have done it in a limited number of constituencies. Now that the results show there are 100 independents and 70 odd PMLN and 50 odd PPP. So now they will get to work on the independents and cobble a coalition government, which will be like a PDM 2.0 with the
Hmm.
MQM, with the JUI, with other smaller parties, and these independents. So they come into power. It'll be a weak coalition, will be dependent on the army to keep it together, and the army will have its way. So, to answer your question, as Stalin put it does not matter who votes or how
Hmm.
many votes. What matters is who counts. So, to that
Hmm.
extent, the army is going to get the end result of what it had always wanted, a weak coalition
Mhm.
government that they can
You said
manipulate and control.
yeah. Mhm. So, do you expect it to last?
No, that's just it. It lasts so long as the army wants it to last. And if the army finds that this is not working, they can pull the plug at any time.
Uh-huh.
So at least, but they will give this government a minimum of a year, year and a half, 2 years to perform because quick elections or quick turnaround of elections is not something that the army wants. The government, the country can't afford another expensive election, so they will allow this government to run. And because it's a weak coalition government, which will be malleable to army's influence, the army will probably get along with it fine, so long as they are able to deliver on governance, especially on the economy, and they don't interfere in what the army considers its preserve. But these days, the army even considers the economy as its preserve. This latest
Mhm.
innovation of this strategic, this SIFC, Special Investment Facilitation Council, which is
Yeah.
headed, which is army chief is very much in control over there. So, so long as the government doesn't get ideas that it is running policy, I think the government will continue minimum of 2 years.
Mhm. And another election, or can you even envisage a time when Imran Khan is forgiven? After all, both Nawaz Sharif and before that even Benazir Bhutto were forgiven and brought back.
Yeah. So I have a favorite line. that in the army chief's office there is a cupboard in which there are different hangars. So one hanger is Imran Khan, Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif,
I think you've
Bilawal,
frozen,
Asif
Chief.
Zardari, Mariam Nawaz. So right now the Imran Khan hanger has been put back and the Shehbaz Nawaz Sharif hangers have been taken out. So when they get worn out, they may just bring back Imran Khan. The problem with Imran Khan is that he is too uncompromising. He cannot even talk to the opposition, and he can certainly not talk to Asim Munir because between him and us, General Asim Munir, there is a lot of bad blood. From the time he was threw him out as DGISI, didn't want him to become the army chief, made it very clear that it is not his preference. So there is bad blood, and because he was too obstinate and with a lot of hubris, and he thinks he's God's gift to Pakistan, he will not bend. You see, Nawaz Sharif, Asif Zardari, they've all compromised with the army at some stage or the other. That politics is the art of the possible. Imran Khan doesn't believe that. He believes politics is what he is. What he says, that's it. So he'll probably get broken if he not get bent. But for the moment, the army is going to preserve with him. Preserve him till such time as the others, uh, you know, screw it up, for lack of a better word. Then they may talk to him again at that time if he's mellowed by then.
Mhm. There is this buzz going around that Nawaz Sharif may opt out of the prime ministership and would rather that his brother take over. Do you see any merit in that?
Yes, I've heard that too. And I think the reasoning for that could be that he's probably a very disappointed man. He thought that when he came back, he would be able to galvanize Punjab and get a massive victory for the PMLN, a simple majority, which he would head. Now that they have to go into a coalition, he knows,
Mhm.
and probably everybody else does, that Shahbaz Sharif can manage a coalition much better than what he can. So the
Mhm.
way it is being worked out is that Shahbaz Sharif will become the Prime Minister, Mariam Nawaz will become Chief Minister of Punjab, and I think Asif Zardari is gunning to become President. So in the compromise with the PPP, they may just agree to Asif Zardari. You see, the current President Alvi has completed his tenure last year,
Yeah,
but because the assemblies were not there to vote for a presidential election, a new president is in the offing. So maybe Asif Zardari would really. So what Asif Zardari's calculation would be that this government can go in 2 years' time, but he gets a
mm,
5-year tenure. He gets
okay.
protection from any kind of prosecution.
Mhm.
And Bilawal Bhutto, I guess, will get the foreign ministry again.
Mhm. Even
I
in
mean,
this
that's one
coming
kind of
coalition.
scenario. That's one kind of scenario being painted.
Mhm. So you would expect Bilawal to enter this government, the coalition government now being formed?
Certainly, they will, look for spoils of office. Definitely, he's not going to sit out because this gives him more experience, allows him to consolidate their hold not only in Sindh but also in Punjab where they made some inroads. By staying out of government, he doesn't achieve anything.
Mhm. You expect the independence of the PTI to break up soon? They'll all succumb at some point?
It's a difficult question. They'll be afraid of the revenge of the voters who have voted them into power because they are
Yeah,
PTI, because it was a vote in favor of Imran Khan. So they'll have to be very careful of that. But at the end of the day, if they find it that the price is right and they get benefits by switching, there's no political loyalty as such. So people have shifted from party to party to party. All of them have. So they'll have to find some justification, national interest, country in danger, Islam in danger, something like that. They will find a justification to switch sides. I don't see large scale people moving away, but certainly in some critical areas, definitely they'll start. One person has already switched. So,
yeah,
I think in the next 2, 3 days, because there is a certain time period in which independents have to declare their allegiance to a party.
I see.
And also
Mhm.
because they are independents, they will not be able to get any portion of the reserved seats. 60 women and 10 minority seats. They will lose that unless they join all the 100 odd independents, join another party, not necessarily
Mhm.
PTI or PPP. Even if they join a smaller party which has got one seat, then they can claim a share. Although that again is a permutation combination people are talking about. But some, I think, will certainly join the PTI or the PPP.
Mhm. It's curious you mentioned that these independents may, have no particular loyalty, but the voters are loyal. I mean, the voters have brought these independents to a certain point, and what was the disillusionment among them?
Yeah, that's going to be a massive thing. And you see, the other reason why people are not talking about the massive vote and turnout which the independence of the PTI has got is because of the demographics. Now, I was just saying that almost 55 million voters were between the ages of 18 and 35. That's about 47% of the electorate. That's a huge chunk.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the in the 2018 elections, the margin of victory in about 120 constituencies was 6,000 and below. In some cases, less than 2,000. Some cases, less than 1,000. So, if these young voters actually voted, we don't know the percentage yet. The voting percentage has not been announced. But if they had actually gone out to vote, they would make a difference and turn the election. So,
Mhm.
yes, they will certainly, they are committed to Imran Khan, not because of his performance. His performance in 3.5 years was extremely dismal, but sympathy vote. There's so many cases being piled up, lone man, everybody else against him, and everybody else is convinced him is corrupt. So everybody apart from him is corrupt, whereas he
Yeah.
could well be the most corrupt guy, politician. But this is the dream that he has sold the youth. That Hakiki Azadi, the real freedom, will come only when I am in power, and I will take you towards Riyasat-e Medina. A lot of Islamic touches, and then his
Yeah.
personality, World Cup victory. So he's become a cult figure, and people are not, the supporters are not prepared to hear anything against them. So, having voted for him to any other candidate who then breaks away and joins another party, which Imran Khan has convinced him is corrupt, so the guy will
Mm.
really have to be very, very careful, because the voter anger can lead to unforeseen consequences.
Mhm. I also want to look at the army. I mean, the attacks on the army last year gave an indication that there's a lot of the electorate which has no illusions about the men in uniform. Yet, the army remains rock-like in control of Pakistan's destiny. So, what is going on? I mean, these people are able to stay in charge despite knowing that the public thinks they're a bunch of incompetent duffers.
Actually, that May 9th was a build up to the kind of social media, especially, and what Imran Khan had been telling the people. That he is the red line. That if anything happens to him, the people must come out and protect Hakiki Azadi and things like that. The surprising thing was that happened in Punjab because Punjab is the bastion
Hmm.
of the Pakistan army. Bulk of the army
Yeah.
comes from Punjab, whether it's officer or whether it is men. In the rural areas, especially, and even the urban areas, many houses have people in the armed forces. So that I think was an eruption of anger and aberration, and that has settled in, especially when the mob attacked martyrs' memorials. Somebody who gave his life for Pakistan, you go and attack that.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think the public and even the people. So thereafter, when the cases, he was imprisoned later and he got a whole lot of prison terms, there has been no protest because I think people just
Hmm.
backed off. They realized what they had done was something absolutely incomprehensible. So when 2 days ago, when he announced victory, as did Nawaz Sharif, and he said there will be protests if I am not given the government, there were very few protests yesterday and day before. This
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
wasn't the kind of protest which you would have expected if he had been out and the election that felt had been stolen. People are not willing to come out on the road and protest against the army because of the memory of what happened in May 9th and the kind of crackdown. that the army has indulged in since almost over a year and a half. So there is resentment against the army for its interference, but at the same time, in Punjab especially, the army is also regarded as a very, you know, the institution of last resort. When everything else fails, they look up to the army for succor and for help. So there's a bit of a contradictory view, and this is the biggest dent that Imran Khan has made. He tried to create a chasm between the army and the
Mhm.
people, and that's why the army will never forget him.
But the army, would you say, has read the public mood correctly? They know they can do this and get away with it?
There again, it's there are no real sort of indicators. But if I can see the demographics, and I know the young people and the anger in the youth, frustration, price rise, all those kinds of things, the army which is there on the ground will also know the public mood is
Yeah.
such. So therefore, they've done the rigging or the political engineering over three phases. Pre-poll, during the polling, and the
Hmm.
political engineering which they will use to cobble together a coalition government that keeps out Imran Khan. The army, I'm sure, realizes it. They have 70 years of institutional memory of how to win elections. So, you can't just write them off because Imran Khan's independents have got 100 seats. And I find from most of the articles that are written, especially by a lot of Indian analysts, they seem to have gone overboard that, the army is in the doghouse and the people have won.
Yeah.
They've spoken out against and strengthened democracy and all that. I don't really believe it. The end result is what government comes into power. And by all accounts, as on date, tomorrow what happens, you can't be sure. But as on date, it's clear that it's moving towards a coalition government between the PPP and the PMLN with the support of the MQM and the other smaller parties.
Would you say Imran Khan has struck roots within the army families, people who have voted for him?
He has support. He is popular amongst the veterans, among the army officers' families. There's no doubt about that. But see, he mistook that support, that feeling people have towards him, that the army will split and start fighting against each other for his sake. Now, that's not
Mhm.
going to happen. The Pakistan army is a disciplined force. The chain of command, the unity is going to remain. No general is going to pick up and march towards another general and, have a civil war.
Mhm.
They all know that they get their perks and privileges because they are a member of the army. If the army disintegrates, what happens to all their properties, all the perks that they get? That's not going to happen. So he has support. He is popular amongst the army and the family especially, but he mistook that support to say that people will come out in his support from the army. It's a very mistaken belief
Mhm.
and purely as a
And
result of hubris.
and you don't see the army emulating its Bangladeshi counterpart and stepping back at some point, or would you see this election as perhaps an indication that sometime in the future they'll have to do it?
You see, sometimes in the future is open-ended. It can happen 20 years down the
Yeah.
road. Right now, the way the situation is in Pakistan, I don't see the army stepping back because they know that if the way Pakistan's governance has taken place, if they were to step back now and leave the civilians holding the can, that you know it'll all go up in flames because you have a security problem, major security, you have a major economic problem, you have political polarization. There's so many things which are wrong in Pakistan today. What's being called polycrisis. That if they were to step back at this, say that we can't be, then again they know that if the economy shrinks, first nobody can afford, or Pakistan cannot afford such a large army.
Yeah.
So and everybody will say, hey, cut down a couple of crores. So to preserve their own privileges and perks, they will make sure that the governance stays, on track. So I don't see them stepping back at all. Not in the immediate, not in the medium term either.
Mhm.
And no army chief
So
would like
finally,
to downsize the army.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, any take you have on perhaps relations with India, which with how things could go?
Very early. You see, first of all, in India there is no appetite
Yeah,
for any
absolutely.
kind of thing with Pakistan. Now, Pakistan elections are going to throw up a coalition. So again, it will be very difficult to assess which way the coalition is going to, like, who in the coalition actually matters where foreign relations are concerned. Besides, I think Pakistan has more serious foreign policy concerns, the relations with the US, with China, with Afghanistan, with Iran. For them also to expend any political capital on looking at the relations with India. So I don't see anything happening for at least the next 6 months, and especially
Mhm.
after our own elections. At that time, a review, I guess, would be done to see where Pakistan is at and where can you start, you know, rebuilding the threads.
Mhm. You see any incipient moves towards trade, assuming Shehbaz Sharif shares the same ideas as Nawaz Sharif?
At this stage, I think it will be very difficult because,
Hmm.
the old Imran Khan line remains that unless India walks back on 5th August 2019, changes in Kashmir, there can be no talks or trade. And in the
Yeah.
PMLN manifesto, the same thing was also reiterated. So I don't see how Shahbaz Sharif or anybody else, unless they modify that through parliament or through cabinet decision or something, I don't see any of that. It's a very low hanging fruit. Restoration of high commissioners, they were the ones who withdrew it. Trade also they stopped. So they will have to walk back a long way, before India
Mhm.
can even think of anything like that.
Interesting, Tilak Devasher. Thanks very much for that insight and perspective. And we'll probably be coming back to you at some point as things over there move forward. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you very much, Surya. Thanks for having me over. Thank you.
And that's all we have on this edition of The Gist. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much.